Hey, Bill, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, so lifelong entrepreneur. I started my first company when I was still in college, and it was around a passion that I had, which was auto racing. I started a company called racefan.com, and that was about the time that all internet companies were imploding, the bubble, if you will.
Bill.
So I built a bricks and clicks business. There's an old term to probably age myself, and it was really successful. We built what became one of the largest properties on the internet for motorsports news and information, almost like a clearinghouse. And so we had clients like Prime Media. We powered all their magazines with automotive content and had contracts with Valvoline and the U.S. Army to execute promotions at racetracks all over the country. We did like 650 tracks. I sold that business in 2004 and then started what became really my most successful startup in terms of completion. Built what is now the market leading solution for redeeming digital coupons. It was called MDOT. And we
Wow.
won the Amazon Global Startup Challenge in 2010, and we were acquired in 2011 by a company called Inmar, which is today still the largest processor of all types of paper coupons. So, yeah.
Cool. And where'd you get the entrepreneur bug? Was it a family thing or a particular event?
I think it started in first grade when I started drawing pictures for people for quarters. I literally draw pictures for people. They tell me what they want. I draw a picture. They'd give me a quarter. Then I went into baseball cards for a while. That worked out pretty well. So I would go to school with a price list and I would sell my baseball cards, the ones that I didn't want. But yeah, I just always have, I've always gravitated towards sort of controlling my own destiny. And it really goes back to when I was 8. I wrote the patent office for a contraption called a Velcro towel. I thought
Yeah,
that was pretty cool when I was 8 years old, but I didn't follow up on that one.
cool. And why sell versus just build and continue to grow?
Well, it all comes down to the market dynamics. My current company, OneRail, which is becoming a leader in final mile delivery. I see a runway for OneRail for quite some time. My last company, we had really long sales cycles. We had even longer implementation cycles. And then you can only keep that fire stoked for so long, so you have to make a tough decision. Do you continue to feed the fire and incur dilution, or do you look at teaming up with a big partner like Inmar and
Yeah.
really going to work there and having all the capital you need to scale it? And that just made a lot of sense.
And have they always been your idea, or is it you're the guy to take it and run with it, or?
Yeah, it's always my idea. I've only done one startup where I was brought in to be the CEO,
Yeah.
and it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done because there was so much baggage, and it wasn't really something. I didn't really believe in some of the things that had been done before, and it was so tough, with the capital I had to change the way that ship was going. So no, I prefer to just come up with the
Your
idea.
idea.
Yeah.
And do you see yourself as the idea guy and the execution guy? Because it's,
Yeah.
sometimes they're different.
Yeah, for me, it's the same. So for me, the way especially the last two, MDOT and now OneRail, I've really gone out and put together our first 5 or 10 major deals. It's a matter of trial and error. You have to listen to the customer, especially when you're pioneering a new space. You have to really listen. You have to listen very well, and then you have to execute. And that's something I think if I had to give myself, a report card, that's probably where I do best is I have a great vision, but then I go
Yeah.
validate it and test it and break it. And ultimately after 18 months, you usually get where you want to be. And then you can settle in and start to scale it.
Yeah. Because you always hear about the idea people, but they don't execute.
Right.
And they
No,
get, yeah,
yeah,
they get all like hyped up on the idea.
right. Oh, it's all about execution. And
Yeah.
I have a thing a little sign that hangs above my whiteboard. It says execute ideas. It's the simplest thing, but it just reminds me, there's probably 10,000 people had the same idea that I had,
Right.
or more. Who knows? I know I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but when it comes to rolling up the sleeves and going to work, that's where it's all at to get that early traction.
And what's your strongest part of the execution? Is it marketing, sales, product development?
Product market fit.
Yeah.
Understand what's really, really wrong in the market. And even if it's not elegant, what it takes to fix it sometimes isn't fun or pretty. It's not sexy. It's not always a SaaS solution.
No.
Sometimes there has to be a human service component, like with OneRail. We provide logistics management on top of an API first strategy. Nobody else does that, but that's what it takes to make the shipper happy, is knowing there's a team 24/7 watching every single delivery. And you know what? No, that doesn't get the same multiple maybe as a payment company or a SaaS company, but we're also going to have less churn, and we're going to win deals where it's a pure software play
Yeah.
or up against a pure software play.
And what are your weak points? Is it marketing? Where do you hire to augment your skill set?
Operations,
Yeah.
you can only do so many things well, and I have to surround myself with really amazing operations staff, not only operating the program, but the farmers, if you will, to take care of client services, implementations. That's where I'm not I'm the worst probably
Yeah.
to do.
And what excites you? Is it building something? Is it beating a competitor? Is it proving that you're right? Is it,
All of the above. I mean,
yeah,
it's the I call it the look back. So every time I go into a Publix grocery store and it asks me for the phone number on the pin pad, that was my software to redeem coupons. So anytime I go to a Wegmans or a Publix or a Family Dollar and I see that queue, I know that I built that, and I know that that's powering billions of dollars of transactions. So for me, that's what it's about. It's about knowing that we've made an impact on the market. And that is the win for me, and it's knowing that it's sustainable.
yeah.
I had it's 10 years since I started that company and 6 since I left, and virtually no de-installs, no churn, from the prior company. So I like that. That means we got it right, and we built something sticky, and it's going to provide value for a long time.
And I'm sure you see other entrepreneurs a lot and probably talk to them or observe them from a distance. But which ones do you admire and which ones do you kind of, it's not going to work?
So I really, this is probably polarizing, but I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. Think about how hard it is to make an impact in one vertical, right? But to literally change and
Well,
rewrite 3 verticals.
yeah, but he chose the three easiest.
He did.
Yeah,
Putting
start a
somebody
car
in
company, a rocket company, and a solar company.
Neuralink, I mean,
Yeah,
that's just an API probably, right? A human API. So
yeah,
oh no, I really think the fact that, yeah, I mean, the decoupled synergies between those, there's really not a lot of synergies, and they're 3 very difficult things. He has a recipe, and I think he's unrelenting and doesn't take no for an answer. And it's all really a sorting process and how you build your staff. If they don't see the vision, you continue to find people that do, and that won't say no. And
yeah.
I think that approach has served him very well. Um, yeah.
Do you study his like first principles way of thinking and learning? Have you looked
No,
at that?
no. And that's something that's probably another weakness of mine. I don't do enough reading. I'm always doing. And that's something, so I haven't studied that. I don't want to say that I did.
Yeah.
But I observe and read, what's going on in real time. And yeah, it's something I probably need to do.
And because I like the guy too, and I watch and study him, and the good thing is he's doing amazing stuff. Because people are looking at Tesla like an auto company, and it's not really an auto company.
Right.
It's a platform,
Yes.
and people are only now getting that.
Yeah, it's taken a very long time for people to get that, but the markets have responded, in the past 6 months, 9 months.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the downside, you can almost see him age.
Well, yeah, he's taking the path of most resistance, right?
Most resistance. And it has
Um,
a personal impact on him, I think, his health and
yeah.
stuff. How do you keep that balance in place, or do you?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard. I will say the one thing I have going for me in this startup, my wife works with me, and so
Okay.
she's my co-founder. She runs client services. We can talk business at 2 in the morning. We can talk personal stuff at 2 in the afternoon if we want. So there's an interchange. There's sort of an exchange that happens there on the home front side. That makes it a little bit easier. But it's tough. I mean, I don't go to the gym enough. I don't eat. I'm a stress eater, right?
Oh boy,
And
yeah.
when you're raising lots, we're about to close our second round of capital in the same year, which is pretty rare. And that's a testament to our growth. And it's just it's really stressful. And when you have those types of triggers, it makes it difficult. So, but it's something that I've gotten better at. I'm certainly not good at it. But it's something you just have to continue to work on. Everybody's working on something.
Yeah. And how do you decompress?
My hobby is auto racing. So I
Oh,
drive a
cool.
race
Yeah.
car. Yeah.
Yeah.
I drive a race car. I've done that since I was 17. It's been in my family since the 60s. So I go out to the racetrack and I forget about the world for, if I can, for a day. And that
It kind of forces you to forget about the world.
my COO forces me to race. One weekend, I'm like, I can't race this weekend. We're in the middle of this race and we've got
Yeah.
these commercial deals. He said, you need to go to the racetrack. So
Yeah.
that was a sign that maybe I was becoming a little too intense, wound a little too tight. So that always fixes it. Even if I have a bad day at the racetrack, it's still a great day. A bad day at the racetrack is still a great day.
Yeah, because your total escape,
Yeah.
condensed. It's,
Mhm.
it's probably a couple of hours. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, you're in it.
Right.
And
It's like wrestling in a way too. I used to wrestle in high school, and I liked this sort of the singularity of that, where it's just me and the opponent. Not that I don't mind team sports, and racing is a team sport. I mean, you've got a team of 10 people preparing the car, but ultimately it's you on the
it's
track,
you. Yeah.
and you got to make it happen. And I like that. It feeds the competitive edge, but it also feeds the stress relief edge.
And wrestling has that component because you're constantly trying to get into a lower weight class.
Right.
So all the things that would help you become better, you can't have.
That's right.
Food and water.
Seriously. That was challenging. And yeah, that part of it is very challenging. But yeah,
There's no
part,
hiding.
yeah, it is.
It's all out there. You either win or you lose, and it can change really quickly. And it's both a mind game and a physical game,
Absolutely.
because it looks like it's just brute force, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Oh yeah, it's an art. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. At least with wrestling, you can't hit a concrete wall though. That's one thing about
that's
auto
true.
racing that can be that hurts sometimes. But
Yeah, the worst thing, you
yeah,
break a bone or something.
yeah, knock some sense into you. But yeah, it's really nice. It's nice to have that outlet, and it's something I've done as a family for a long time, and that part's nice too.
And what do you look for when you're hiring key people?
Yeah, so I look for, prior have you done this before, right? Is kind of it. I wouldn't say it's cliche, but that's table stakes.
Yeah.
I find that somebody, for example, we're in the logistics space. I didn't spend a day in logistics before starting this company. I was a disgruntled customer that wanted to buy a refrigerator at Lowe's Home Improvement, and they said it would take 10 days. And I thought, how could that even be? There has to be somebody with a truck that wants to make a few dollars, like an Uber for delivery model. I love to find people that have been successful in other verticals and bring them into the vertical I'm in, with a mix of people that have been successful in the vertical. And you really put together a dynamic team that way, because you have problem solvers that have a fresh set of eyes. And bringing it back to Elon Musk, right? I think there's probably a similar factor for him, where it's sort of the emperor doesn't have clothes all the time. He can see things that other people can't see because he hasn't been rooted in the space his whole life. So I look for that, problem solvers, people that won't say no, one or two people that will say no on the ops team.
Yeah.
But I like a salesperson, and I like a biz dev mindset, and especially a CTO that says yes. The
Kind
CTO
of,
has to say
I'm
yes.
I'm getting a sense of you like the risk
Yeah.
that
I,
that that excites you.
yeah. I couldn't work in a company. I would never say I'm unemployable, but the hardest part for me in my last journey was being acquired and having to work in a mature framework and
Yeah.
having to behave and having to, uphold norms. That was really difficult for me.
Yeah. Well, the entrepreneurs typically have that risk motive, and both in wrestling and in auto racing. Auto
Right.
racing definitely risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going, the
Probably.
whole idea is to go as fast as you can without losing control.
Right. That's exactly right. And you might
And
even lose a little control, but still get where you're going.
yeah, and that gets you into that flow state.
That's
Float.
right.
Yeah, it's like right on the a little bit more than you're comfortable with, but without losing control.
That's right.
And I think the ideas people, they don't go far enough.
Right.
They get excited with the idea, but they never take the risk to try and implement it.
That's that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good connection.
And what type of culture do you like to build?
I like to build a culture where the team is most critical of the solution. So we encourage, we're going into a new office, pretty excited about that. It's going to be a nice, open, Google-esque kind of office. That's going to really be nice to get everybody under the same roof. We grew so much during COVID that we have 3 offices and we have teams chunked out into different places, and it's miserable. So I like to build sort of an open atmosphere. There's a lot of cross-departmental collaboration. I'm a big fan of being very critical of the solution, though. And first, there was an episode of Shark Tank. I think it was the founder of Kind was on there, and he said something that really resonated with me. And I might get this wrong. I'm really taking a big risk here, but there's first the creative phase, right, where you say, "Oh, this is what we're going to do," and everybody's excited, and that's the idea phase. That's the
Yeah.
fun. That's arts and crafts time, right? That's playtime. So I like playtime, but then the second part is be the critic. So be the creative, be the critic. Now we're going to be critical of what we do, because we're not going to succeed if we're not.
Yeah.
And then crusader, be the crusader. Once you're critical and you break it and you fix it and you got the right product market fit, be the crusader. And I like that culture in a team where you can be open and honest and not drink your own Kool-Aid. Doesn't mean not have fun, but it means, really be objective about what we're trying to do, and don't be afraid, even if it's my idea, to say it's not a good idea. I encourage the team all the time, beat this up, change it, break it, make it better.
I think that's a critical mindset, because if you don't have that, everybody just says, "Yes, Bill, you're a genius. Yes,
I
you're
hate
just
that.
amazing."
I hate that. At the end of the day, we're united by equity in a startup. That's our common DNA. And we
Yeah.
have to be loyal to the equity. We got to be loyal to the equity. And that's the only way to be loyal to the equity, is to be critical. And as soon as I'm not, I'm not the right guy to be leading it.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what Jobs did. Is that constant pressure, that constant focus on detail, and not making it personal.
Right.
It's about making the product, the service, the company the best it can be.
Yes.
Not saying you're a bad person. It's just right.
It takes people a little while to understand that, if they're not used to that culture, and
Yeah.
especially big company people are not quite used to that. And it takes a little time to get over that, and develop that trust where they can be honest, like total honesty.
And do companies get to a certain size where they're no longer fun for you?
No, I always wondered about that. And my last company stayed relatively small. And then it became large after it was acquired. We had 100, 120 people in the division. This company, I can never see uh, not finding interesting. I mean, this final mile ecom space is the topic of the day. It's the most important thing right now in terms of retail. So I don't have an endpoint, and that's how it should be. The endpoint, people always ask, when are you going to exit? When are you going to sell it? How are you going to do it? Is it going to be an IPO? Is it going to be a sale? And any CEO that can tell you what that's going to be isn't doing their job. It's a snapshot, a moment in time. At one time, what's your competitive ecosystem?
Right.
How well are you serving your clients? What's your churn? How much money is in the bank? You have to take stock of all those things at any way, like a balance sheet. It changes. And that's how I look at it. As soon as I look and say, you know what, the competitive pressures are bad, the industry the growth is slowing down, I'm not sure how we're going to get it, and there's 3 companies that want to buy us, then maybe that's the time. But I don't have an endpoint right now, and I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of entrepreneurs you meet, they like that a certain stage, whether it's like 0 to 10 or 0 to 20 or 5 to 50, whatever it is. Um, And it's hard for somebody to stick with it as it goes through those stages and have it not become that big stuffy smile and nod company.
Yeah, it's tough. You still have to maintain your integrity though. As a CEO, you shouldn't change yourself. You have to adapt. There's certainly a higher level of professionalism you have in a company. Even right now, where we were less than 10 employees before the lockdown, and now we're 40.
Well,
There's a difference there in things you can say in the office, things you can't say, because you're with the call it the OG, right? The original
yeah,
team that was there, right, for the first 2 years. Now all of a sudden there's a lot of really great people that we've recruited from afar, and we've moved people, and you got to uphold a little higher standard on the professional side, but you shouldn't have to sacrifice your principles. And so I treat it like a sorting process. I'm looking for people that want to align with the business, the vision, that are a good fit naturally. And you don't get it right every time, but you certainly try. And yeah, I don't really foresee an endpoint in terms of how big I would feel comfortable. I think it's the problem I'm solving. As soon as the problem is solved and it's like scale mode and just operating, that's probably not going to be fun. But that'll be.
what's your least favorite part of your day or your role?
Yeah. So least favorite part. Wow, that's a hard one. I don't like raising capital, to be totally honest.
It's annoying.
I love my investors and I have the best investors ever, but I don't enjoy the process. It just consumes
Time.
30% of your time. And in the last month or so, it takes 100% of your time. So that's the only part of what I do that I don't really enjoy. But as far as the business goes, there's really no facet of the business that I don't enjoy. It's the capital raise responsibility.
Was this the first time you raised outside capital?
No, it's the second startup I've had, third startup I've had where I've raised capital. Every startup I've had, I've raised capital, but this one has so much scale potential. It's a really big deal, and we're going to be raising capital a lot.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And what have you learned through that process? Is it because you're given the same pitch over and over again, right?
Yes.
You're answering the same questions, and some people get it, some people don't. Have you found a way of getting in front of the right people who really want to get in this space?
Yeah, we're getting better at that. I'll tell you what, my theory on engaging with investors is the same as it's been for the last 10 years. I don't leave an investor call or meeting where I don't take one thing away. No matter, I go into it knowing I'm going to find one thing that I'm going to learn, even if it's a bad fit, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to exploit it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to get value out of it. So I'm getting value from my time one way or the other. I'm going to get value in the form of a new capital partner. I'm going to get great operating advice, or I'm going to get some little nugget or idea that I'm going to take and run with. And they do it too. So
Right, because they are definitely the best people to network with.
Oh yeah.
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 And they
That's
tend to see a little hole that you didn't see before
yeah.
from a
That's
different
right.
angle, or
That's right.
potential competitor, a different way of doing it.
It's a different kind of voice of customer.
It is.
It's not the customer, but it's almost like voice of business, voice of strategy. And
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, I do like, that's the one part that is very helpful. We try really hard, to within the first 5 minutes of an investor call, decide if it's a good fit or not. And there's been a few times I've said, you know what, this probably isn't a good fit. I don't want to waste your time. If they're just a certain vertical that they're focused on, or a certain growth phase, you know what, we're just not there yet. We haven't hit that ARR yet. So why don't we talk again in a year?
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to end a meeting. It doesn't make sense when you're talking to 100 VCs to talk to one is not going to.
Yeah. And you came highly recommended to the show. What do you think motivated those people to do that?
I don't know. I don't think of myself as special. I just go out and do every day. And I think that if you talk to anybody that's worked with me, I take vapor and turn it into a business. And so maybe some of the things, little nuggets, that I've used to help go from vapor to business have been helpful. Maybe that's why, because that's probably what I'm best at. but yeah, I'm really appreciative. I love the show. It's been a favorite of mine ever since I discovered your show. And sometimes, my wife will tell you, I don't sleep well sometimes. So at 2 in the morning, I'm watching you walk through neighborhoods. I'm like, look at this one. Look at this.
This one. Can you believe he has the nerve to do it?
And you just absolutely nail it every time. It's funny because you have a good way of taking the whole business development practice, and if you can't make fun of yourself and people like you certainly aren't going to improve. And so the first time I sent it to my team, I was wondering if they're going to take it personally, and they didn't. So
Yeah,
that was good. But it's good because we all do some of the things. I know I do. I learn a lot. Like, oh God, why have I've done that for 20 years? I shouldn't be doing that. So
yeah.
it's super helpful to me. I know that.
Cool. Hey, appreciate your time today, Bill. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about OneRail?
You can go to onerail.io, and certainly find me on LinkedIn. I, uh, I'm not the best Twitter user yet. That's something I'm still getting better at. But usually LinkedIn, or just go directly to the site, learn more about what we do, and yeah, really appreciate the opportunity, Brian, very much.